We have an immigration law. The immigration law is totally misguided. It came about in 1917 because basically the First World War and a reaction to changes in the U.S. place in the world. It was revised in the 1960s in a way that restricted immigration from most places, but kind of opened the door to immigration from Latin America for reunification of families. But it all kept in place these very strict quotas. And there is no way that the number of immigrants who are trying to cross the border can be accommodated within the quotas. That's why they're trying to cross the border in places other than legal ports of entry. So what's a president supposed to do? I did not think that Obama's approach of saying, even though I've sworn to uphold the laws, there are some laws which I am not going to uphold at all. I would say catch and release is not upholding the law. We know the data there is quite clear that when an ineligible person is apprehended and then given a summons to appear later for an immigration tribunal and then freed, they don't show up. So that is catch and release is essentially open borders for anyone who can get here. Now, I go back and forth on whether or not I think that's the right thing to do, but it's clearly not what the law provides for. It's observing the letter of the law, potentially, that prosecutorial discretion allows you to release someone after they have been arrested, but in practice, it's clear that what that ends up meaning is that the law is not enforced at all. So is zero tolerance the right response to that? I don't think so, but I think that detention makes a lot of sense. But what I would like to see is detention being a way that you sort out the sheep from the goats. Because I have no concern about immigration on economic grounds. My concern is on grounds of public safety. I think we're facing a very different situation with immigration from Latin America across our southern border than Europe is facing with immigration of Muslim populations from the Middle East. Not comparable at all. The immigrants that are coming into the United States from Latin America are largely Christian. They've been brought up with the same values and cultural background. I mean, they may be poor, they may be uneducated, but through their churches and their communities, they have the same, their values are the values of Western civilization. And they probably appreciate the opportunities provided by the United States more than a very large proportion of those who are born citizens. But there is a significant criminal element that comes in. From the statistics that I cited in a column a few months ago, the incarceration record of illegal immigrants from Latin America, illegal Hispanic immigrants, falls between the incarceration rate for white citizens and the incarceration rate for black citizens. So it's not that they're all, it's not only not that they're all criminals, it's that they really aren't changing the proportion of criminals very much in the population. What we see politically is, sentimental exploitation of photographs actually taken 4 years ago of kids being separated from their parents on one side, and endless headlines about how another illegal immigrant who was another felon who came back across the border 4 or 5 times and then murdered someone. And those are the two stereotypes that we're looking at. I'd like to see a more organized process of examining those who present themselves for entry and sorting them out into those who have a criminal record or those who are clearly coming to live off the dole, and those who are, law-abiding, hardworking, and everybody who I know who has entered the United States illegally falls into that category. They're hardworking, they are church-going, they take care of their families under the most, under circumstances that are, really very difficult. They don't have access to they don't have access to most government support programs. They can't get, they're not eligible for Medicaid. They have to pay for their health care. I admit I am a little vague on exactly what children qualify for. They certainly qualify for free education and free meals at school. We know that from our record here, from our statistics here in Talbot County. Everyone from Alan Dershowitz, who I think is the Harvard law professor, who I think has been a very objective and even-handed kind of critic or supporter of Trump's, defender when appropriate and critic when he's not of Trump's policies, all the way to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, who I think have had a remarkable record of getting things wrong lately, agree that it's morally indefensible to separate children from their parents. It doesn't mean it's a sin that some politician is committing, but that the family is the most important unit in society, that it can be very traumatic for children to be separated from their parents, and that but just more generally, if we believe that the family is the proper and most important unit in society, we should try to keep them together. Our problem is that at some point, the well-meaning left managed to push for an agreement which says you can only keep children with their parents for 20 days. After all of the criticism for separating children from their families, 21 days from now, there's going to be a lawsuit claiming you can't keep these children in detention and you have to release everybody. I don't see any real solution for this other than new legislation. But then it's clear that the Republicans and Democrats have to work together, or even the Republicans have to work together to pass a piece of legislation with a majority through the House and the Senate. What I would like to see is what I think in large part is being proposed. Adequate detention centers to provide a tolerable standard of living, which is going to be far better than what these families are escaping from. They'll be safe, they'll be secure, they won't have gangs extorting 50% of what is sent back to them by the fathers who are in the United States. They'll have sanitation, they'll have regular meals, they'll have health care. I think those are all good things, but that the purpose of the detention centers need to be combined with accelerated tribunals. And my criterion for the tribunals would be, can we determine that no one in this group has a criminal record in their own country, that they have the capability of being self-supporting in the United States. And then maybe, humanitarian exceptions, but not policies. The first part is just getting the facts out, as I tried to do. The facts about crime rates not being significantly, that the crime rates are not significantly different from the average across the U.S. population, though if we divide it up, we can see that there are some clearly identifiable populations that have higher crime rates, some lower crime rates. But so, no, they're not all criminals that are coming in, though we are not doing a very good job of dealing with the criminals who have come in. That is, if we take a broader perspective, immigration, even in the short run, has a positive economic effect, that the immigrants are contributing to productivity in the United States, and that what they're taking in return is less than what the rest of the country gains from that. We need to deal with this notion that more people mean that immigration means fewer jobs for those who live here already. And that's probably the hardest one, because that has been so ingrained as I said before, by the political interests of the unions and others. So there are economic motivations, in a fair number of politically influential sectors for continuing some of these myths about immigration. The only thing that is maintaining our population growth is immigration. We're nowhere near as badly off as Europe is. I mean, we still have a positive population growth rate among kind of white Americans, but it's going to be that growth rate is going to be falling. There's no way the United States will continue to grow. If I look around and ask, how do I want us to grow with immigration? The Hispanics that are coming in strike me as being exactly the ones who do fit best into the United States.